Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Motherland, Fort Salem. Great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This episode's a lot of setup. It's just a kind of continuation of, Nicta, Rael, Tally, Abigail, Adil, his sister, all being on the run and them laying low. I think it is such an interesting thing that Tally is the one that's a little more willing to go down the route of using the same work as the spree, whereas Abigail and Rael have their reluctancy with it. To be fair, it's understandable, like, that work has been used to kill so many people that it's like, of course it's gonna rub you the wrong way, essentially, so especially in Abigail's case, it's like, I'm a bellwether, like, we've always been against the spree, like, her family is very prestigious and everything, so of course it's like, I would never do that, even if it's to help us hide. I'm like, but also it kind of doesn't matter now too, to some extent, because the general public, not even just at Camarilla, have pulled out, they're able to now see through their work, so it almost seems like irrelevant, but you just, at the very least, it's a barrier of making it harder to track down. So I thought it was interesting the face that Nicta ended up choosing, and ended up being, is it Candace McClure, which just saw her again in the final episode of Charm, so it's just like, oh, the timing's interesting. But she's training Tally because Rael's got her circumstances, Abigail's got hers, but Tally still she has her sight, which is powerful, but it's like, right, your sight could go even further than what you're tapping into, and being able to see that far into the future really helps. Nicta can do it, but I'm assuming she sees the potential in Tally, that Tally could go even further. That's why when Tally gets in trouble later on, I'm jumping around a little bit and the plays get busted. I'm like, that's not 100% on her. That's on Nicta. But to be fair, Tally's the one that wanted to do the training in the first place. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of on them. They should have been a lot more careful. I mean, to be fair, you screwing around on top of a building, who knew that would attract, like, some random guy happened to see you. He's like, oh, let me report this in. Who would jump to the conclusion that has anything to do with witches or something, right? So I also feel bad for Tally because she's just like, cool. Thanks for making me feel like I'm single, because Adil and Abigail, and then Scylla and Rael, so it kind of sucks. But they're laying low with other Dodgers as well, and these are people that Scylla knows. We also see her with Tiffany, which is, once again, that's always going to be an awkward thing. The whole her and Tiffany situation is always going to be super awkward because of, because Tiffany asked her some hard questions like, oh, they say you used to be with the spree. She's like, yeah, I was with the spree for a little while, which I'm like, truth be told is we do know that, because, actually correct me if I'm wrong, I'm misremembering, because they covered it last season, but I want to, was that season 1 or was it season 2? They covered the fact is that Scylla's first assignment was the mall situation at the very beginning of the series. Which, don't get it twisted, she killed a shit ton of people, but I want to say that was her first assignment with the spree, and she hasn't really been on the mass murder route. She still was, part of the subterfuge, getting close to Rael and everything, but still. I don't think, she hasn't done as much as other spree have, but that was just kind of like the whole, like, yikes, like, you still got a large-ass body count on your head, so. But she wasn't with them she was with them for a very long time. She wasn't actively with them for a long time, in the sense that she was actively doing stuff for them for a while, so. And even Tiffany being like, oh, do you use the face of the people that you've murdered? Which is like, no, that's not the case. Which is like, good thing it's not the case, but it's just like, the fact that she's asking that question and you could take on the face of either one of her parents, that would just, No, I'm misremembering. I'm thinking it was her parents. It's like, no, it was like her friend's parents. Because, right, she was always supposed to be like, yeah, you don't want a Tiffany. No one wants their kid to be a Tiffany. I forgot. Like, that's what it was. It was like her friend's parents is what that was last season. Her and Anna Costa. But regardless. Well, that was more so Scylla than even Anna Costa, but still. They don't really specify how long it's been since season two's finale, how long they've been on the run. It does seem like they have moved from place to place, because this place they're at, like, you know, this paper company, it's like, right, they've been there a while, but they've been to at least one other place beforehand, because Tiffany later on was like, yeah, this place was actually a really good place. She's like, until your friends ruined it, which is like, oh, that's pretty harsh. And now Scylla has to be away from Tiffany again. And now they just have to move on, and who knows if they'll be able to find another place. It's like, yeah, you just displaced a whole bunch of people. I was also interested by the fact that they ran into what I'm assuming is kind of Scylla's ex. It's like, oh, we used to do stuff before. There was something between us before conscription, and she tried to kiss Scylla the moment, and she's like, whoa, 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 and Rael's almost like, okay. Vera came off as kind of a tool, but then like when she Rael was like, oh, we're so gonna miss you, and Vera's like, oh, that's so sweet, and hugs her, and like, okay, so I guess she's just like, she can kind of be a dick, but she's kind of a good-natured person, I guess. I guess it's just like the sarcasm like completely went over her head, or she was just like, nah, I see the sarcasm, but I'm gonna take it as you legitimately feeling that way. I don't know. Either way, thought that was going to be more of an issue of like, oh, we're hanging around Scylla's ex or something like that. It's like, no, but they decide to move on because it's like, yeah, with Nikta being here and you guys being the most wanted people, it's like, yeah, the best, we're going to find somewhere else to kind of go, because this place has too much heat. It's like they would have had to leave anyway, so. Well, with everyone else when the time came, so. I even thought it was sweet that Adil's sister was going to teach the kids the mother tongue. And I thought that was interesting, basically saying that the mother tongue is a common foundation to all languages, which kind of makes sense, because we got that opening, which I think we really are. I'm assuming that's going to have something to do with the the mycelium, because it was basically, she was like talking about the 6 different witches that basically, because we see them kind of go their separate ways. They did some work together and then they went their separate ways. So is one of them the mycelium, or is the mycelium kind of all of them? I mean, to be fair, the mycelium is kind of a lot of witches put together anyway. It's like a chorus of voices, more so an orchestra, I guess would be the better terminology. So it begs the question what that's all about. And also, interestingly enough, how far back that is. It was like 136,000 years ago. That's wild. So I mean, I don't know how deep they're going to go into that, but at least I think that's going to be the foundation of a lot of stuff that goes down this season, is that history, especially with Alder. Jumping ahead a little bit, the ending with her popping up. Because the question is it the mycelium working through Alder just like it did, like, you know, in conjunction like it did with Rael, or is it like Alder is actually going and now part of the mycelium, but her body's being puppeted, like the mycelium is actually out and about, conscience. I wonder, is that what it is? It's just like it's purely in her body, because her eyes are different now too, because Rael's had that, but hers only tapped in because she only got like it was just a tiny pinch of the mycelium, but she was still connected to all of it, and Alder was submerged in it. So I don't think it's Alder anymore. I think it's just purely the mycelium kind of, in a twisted way, kind of puppeteering her dead body. But I could be wrong. Because the fact is that she spoke the mother tongue the moment she came out. I think that's supposed to be the mycelium, and I think Alder isn't going to be there. Which is going to be interesting. It's going to be a familiar face, but just not the soul behind that body. You know, it's like, no, Alder has moved on, and I've chosen this child to be my avatar of sorts. You know, it's going to be interesting when eventually the mycelium and Rael meet again, because I think that's going to be interesting to be able to have a physical conversation with that. I think is what's really going to be interesting. We'll see how that kind of plays out. But I think the timing is necessary because, well, for one, we find out later on that the mycelium is the next target. Because Albin, the scientist who's really, like, I think he's the main dude behind the witch play, I believe, yeah, he is talking to President Silver as well as their benefactor on trying to get rid of the mycelium, because it's going to be, right, this is their connection to their power, to their history. We kill it, we take away everything that they are. I wonder, even if that was the case, they'd probably still hunt down witches even then. I mean, their greatest way to wipe out witches would be to take their powers. I don't think it would kill them in the process, but it would just take away all their powers, making them basically humans. I'd actually skipped over this a little bit when I was talking about Tally's training, which for one, I just love how that gets represented. I love like just like how they filmed that, just like how you see all those different Nictas moving all over the place, representing her future movements and the possibilities. But Tally went further and she saw something, and Nicta was like, "Do you want to end up like this?" And we see her face is scarred because she did tell Tally that the face that she used was the one that she used to get to Alder. She was suggesting, I wanted it to be the face that she came to know. I wanted it to be the face she saw that was going to be her undoing. And Tally's like, "Oh, this is your original face." She's like, "No, this isn't." And I guess what we saw in that moment, like the messed up, kind of like her scarred face, I think that's her real face. And she's just using what her face looked like before everything went down with Sarah. So, but I think so. This is somewhat her true appearance, like what her original face looked like, but this isn't what she really looks like, is what she's getting to. And that's what startled Tally, and she almost fell off the roof. So you also feel bad because it's like, right, they have to isolate themselves from their family. And I even thought that was the irony behind it, where Abigail said that for so long, her mom was always in control of her, and she always had to adhere to what her mom wanted. But now she's actually wishing she had her mom's orders, despite always kind of going against it. It's because there's a comfort in like that, because it means hey, I can come home. My mom has a plan. It's all worked out. The fact is that no one has a plan now. We're just kind of spitballing this as we go. Just kind of showcases like, right, we're no closer to kind of ending this once and for all. Whereas the Camarilla are setting up for their final attack. Some interesting things happen on the front with her and Adele, and I love that little role playing they're doing. Shelby and Dwight, I thought that was actually super cute, and you can tell him being super awkward. It's like, oh, your attempt at role play. It's like super adorable. But then he's just like, oh, we should start a family. She's like, whoa, was that Dwight or was that Adele talking? He was like, kind of both. And she's like, Shelby doesn't know how to feel about that. It's like, what about Abigail? Now, that was interesting, but then later on, Abigail talks to her mom, which, to be fair, that's kind of what her mom wanted. I mean, not necessarily with Adele, just obviously setting Abigail up with other people. Oh, that was kind of her, I can't remember. I think her mom was pushing for that, but her grandmother wasn't. Or was it like both her grandmother and her mother pushing for it? I don't remember last season when that really came up. About continuing the Bellwether legacy. But Adele was kind of, because he loves Abigail and suggesting they should do that. But there's a conversation about Adele and Abigail, their union of Earth meeting Sky. That definitely seems like the heavenly combination or something like that. That it's like, and even Abigail's like, oh, that is interesting, because Adele just talked about that, because it's like maybe not just putting their work together, but basically both bloodlines coming together could create something powerful, and that might be kind of hinting to another weapon other than the mycelium that they could use against the Camarilla. It is interesting, too, that Petra obviously has everything she ever wanted. She wanted to replace Alder, and now here she is. But once again, it's not even, she's like, yeah, Sarah needed to step down, but it didn't have to be, she didn't deserve this type of ending. And it's like, oh, because she was talking to Anacostia, and it's like, oh, is it that strange that I missed her? And Anacostia's like, no, because it's like, despite our complicated feelings about it, she was kind of basically our mother, so she's the one that led us for so long. Yes, she went astray with some of the, but still. Because Anacostia ends up recruiting M, because M's like, yeah, half my unit's either dead or on the run, so I need something to do to kind of, and so she's going to be the infiltrator for Anacostia, because M is very good at that. If I'm not mistaken, isn't that the same actress that's in The Boys? She was, I'm blanking on her character's name, but she's another head popper from season 2, if I remember correctly. Just because someone had brought that character up again recently, about, wondering if that character's going to pop up in season 3 or not. But I think that's the same actress, isn't it? Maybe not. So I'm thinking we're probably going to see a little bit more of M this season too, just because she'll probably be Anacostia's right hand to like infiltrate and find out any information, because that's kind of what she excels at. So I'd actually skipped over it too. That the at Fort Salem they have designed a what was it a basically a vaccine for the witch plague. But what was interesting was at the end when that rain started pouring down, you're like, that doesn't seem good, because I was like, it looks very. I mean, it seemed like it was like kind of the witch plague, and you heard Penelope's voice, so it's like, wait, did the witch plague resurrect her, or is that just like the Camarilla like effing with you and using Penelope's voice or something like that? Because it's just like Silver is playing it up in the public of like, oh my god, these three, Raelle, Abigail, and Tally being the ones responsible for my daughter's murder. You were supposed to protect her, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. She's just like, oh, you're such a dick. But the question is, like, the fact is that rain pouring down, it's like, oh, I guess it's too late for me. It's like, maybe the witch plague wasn't completely killed. Maybe there was some fragment of her consciousness that's still alive, because the witch plague is this ever-growing entity, so maybe now it's got it was basically, it moved on instinct. So since Penelope was the foundation, like she was the source for it in the attack last season, maybe it took some of her consciousness. Just maybe it's going to be like the polar opposite to the mycelium. Maybe kind of a similar thing happened, and the witch plague now has her consciousness or rather the witch plague is using her consciousness as a voice. Similar to it's a weird example to use, but like how the machine from Person of Interest finally found its voice at the end of near the end of the series. Let's just kind of leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything, because it's pretty significant what voice the machine ends up taking. So I'm curious if there's some is it kind of a similar correlation in this regard. So, like I said, just a lot of setup and just catching up, giving you a nice catch up to where everyone is and everyone's current circumstances. Once again, I don't think that line about, using the sprees work. I think that I think our trio is finally going to ultimately decide that they're going to have to use every tool in their arsenal. Because in the end, Abigail did use their work. Because I'd actually it never crossed my mind of like, oh yeah, the spree dude had that little mirror trick. I forgot about that. Well, yeah, so I was like, I completely forgot about that. That is kind of a good tool. But the fact is, Abigail was willing to go that far. I mean, granted, it was just to talk to her mom, but it's like, right, not saying it's a slippery slope, but I think now they might be, at least Abigail's going to be a little bit more open to it, because I think in the end, they, like I said, need every arsenal in their belt, because they are limiting themselves by not using the spree's word. And, Nicta probably isn't. I mean, obviously, her and Scylla will have her reluctancy about going too dark in front of Raelle, I'm sure, and does not want to slip back into who she was when she was with the spree, because she wants to be a better version of herself. Once again, especially around Raelle. But Nicta probably is the only one amongst them that is not too afraid to probably kill regular people. Even those who've been indoctrinated, like regular citizens who are all about this, she'll probably still kill them. The others will probably have reluctancy when going down that route, but either way, like I said, just kind of a nice starting off point for the final season. I'm curious to see how everything trickles out from here. I'm assuming this is going to be 10 episodes like the previous seasons. I could be mistaken, though. What's 10? Yeah, I think it's 10 and not 13. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a little while since the other seasons, because I binged season 1 pretty closely to season 2, and I want to say it was both for 10 seasons. 10 episodes, but either way, it's going to be interesting to ultimately see where this all takes us going forward next. I wonder, are the trio, well, along with Scylla, Adil, his sister, and Nicta, are they going to be on run like 95% of the season? I'm curious to see ultimately what happens, how long it's going to be before Silver ends up getting exposed to the general public, like knowing that, oh, he basically orchestrated the death of his own daughter. We'll see how this all plays out. I'm excited to see what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.